what he will be talking about, and he has proven results of what he will show you today. I would like you please to welcome Chris HADNAGY.
Bonjour. Bonjour. That's all the French I know. That's it. That's about it. Actually, I know a couple other words, but I won't say them here because that would probably insult some people. As the presenter mentioned, I'm from the USA and I'm from New York. So we talk very, very fast in New York. So if I start talking fast, I need help from all of you guys and gals up here. This is the universal hand signal for slow the heck down. Okay, so just, or you can flip me off or throw something at me, whatever works. But if you could just tell me to slow down, that would really help if I talk too fast. So just a little bit about me. The presenter mentioned, my name is Chris HADNAGY. I am a professional social engineer. What that means is companies hire me to test their people network. So I get to come into companies and run phishing scams, drop USB keys, break into their offices and steal stuff. It's kind of fun. I get paid to be a criminal. So the study that I did, this is actually kind of special for me because this is the first time I'm ever giving this speech anywhere in the world. You guys are guinea pigs for me, okay? So I've done this research for the last 2 years. I've been compiling a lot of research based on Paul Ekman's work and people like Joe Navarro, Mike Lewicki, doctors from UCLA, and I've put together this research, what I call nonverbal human hacking, and I'm going to present it to you today. Hopefully it will be as interesting to you as it is to me. So first I want to define what social engineering is. I define social engineering as any act that influences a person to take an action that may or may not be in their best interest. It's really long-winded, isn't it? But I define it that way because I feel that social engineering isn't always something that's negative. Social engineering can be positive, right? If we have kids, our children social engineer us, don't they? Our mates social engineer us, our families, our priests, our therapists, our doctors. All these people do things that are positive for us, but they influence us to change our attitude or actions or our frames. But in this context, we're talking a little bit about the negative side of social engineering. But we're going to focus more on not what's said. And the reason that this is important is because when I speak about nonverbal human hacking, what I'm really trying to talk about is the ability to change the way someone sees the scene, the way someone sees what you're presenting, the way someone perceives reality that you're in right now. So it sounds like some Jedi mind tricks, but it's not. It's all real basic human science. 7% of what communication is made up of is what we say. Only 7%. That's a really, really microscopic number if you think about it. So that means if only 7% is what's coming out of our mouth, then what's the rest? Well, 38% is our tone. Now, if you want a good example of this, how many of us here have pets? Have dogs? Anyone here have a dog? Okay, a couple, okay, many of us. So you know, if you have a dog and you walk in and you say, "Oh, you're such a stupid dog. You're the dumbest dog I ever met." They still wag their tail and they're all happy, right? Why? Vocal tone. Vocal tone does a lot about what we say. The tone of our voice is more important to the animal than actually the words. So you can say nothing. If your tone matches that, the dog will be happy. They've proven, I'm not comparing babies to dogs, but they've proven that that's the same with children. Children watch their facial expressions, and they watch and they hear, they listen for the vocal tone before they actually understand the words to know if mom and dad is saying something good or bad. The rest, 55%, is all the nonverbal. That means everything from the feet up to the head, and that's what we're going to try to go through in 45 minutes today and leave time for Q&A if we can. If you need proof, what's he feeling? He doesn't look too enthused, does he? He doesn't look too enthused. You don't have to hear what he's saying to understand that he looks pretty damn bored right now, right at that scene. How about her? What do you think she's saying? Don't repeat it, it's a bad word. And she looks like she's pretty angry, right? So you see, this is proof that we don't really need the words in order to communicate a message to other people. So we're going to go through as quickly as we can all the different parts of the body. We're going to start at the bottom of the feet because they're mostly ignored. Actually, there was a really nice article in a book written by an author named Morris he wrote about body language, and he said the feet often get ignored because we're so focused on the face, we're focused on the hands, we're focused on everything from here up that we forget to look at the feet. But the feet are great indicators about what someone's thinking. Imagine this scene. Most of us here, young guys, we approach a girl. She keeps her feet facing this way. What's being said? This is the direction she wants to go, but it's not towards you. It's not towards you. If someone is sitting that way and you approach them and start talking and they turn towards you, the feet indicate where the interest in the mind lies. Feet are a great indicator as what someone is thinking. If their feet start pointing towards an exit, you can tell they have another agenda. If the feet are pointing towards another person, you can tell maybe they need to go talk to that person. Wherever the feet are pointing can indicate the interest level of that person in what you are saying or in you as an individual. Very interesting thing to look for. Now, this has to be done pretty sly, because you can't really walk up to someone and be, hey, how you doing? That's a little awkward, right? People feel a little weird when you start staring at their feet. So we have to be really kind of very sly about the way that you look at the feet, kind of just maybe doing a quick glance down, indicating the interest level of the person when you're speaking to them. The feet and the legs are great indicators. They're attached, right? So they have to go in the same direction. They can't go opposite directions unless they're double jointed. So if your legs are pointing that way, your feet are pointing that way, it's a good indicator of the thought process of the person that you're talking to. This is just a little picture of a scene, something that you may be able to pick up next time you're watching a group of people talking. Take a look at their feet, and you can maybe see who's going to leave that group first. Take a guess based on the feet pointing and see if you're right. It's a good exercise. The torso, that would be this whole part of our body. This is another very key indicator of what someone is thinking, and it's often ignored. It's usually often very ignored. The angle of where our torso is, of course, again, we're moving up and everything's attached, but we can also do something like this. Have you ever had that in the conversation? Someone starts talking to you and they just turn their upper body, so their feet are still pointing this way. I'm a little interested in what you're saying. You know, you caught my interest a little, but I'm not fully committed to you yet. Now I'm fully committed to you. Okay, so you might have noticed when I first got on stage, I was pointing this way because I was nervous and I wanted to run on stage. Now, you know, you guys make me feel good, so I feel a little more committed to you. See how that works? The body language, the torso, indicates the interest level of a person and where they're pointing. Here's a great indicator of this, an example of this. So, I know there's two American presidents. This is Obama and this is George Bush. What do you see about George's body language, his torso? He kind of likes Obama, don't you think? He's leaning into him. But what's Obama doing? He's like, get the heck away from me, buddy. See how much you can tell just from that picture? You can just see the slight angle here on his body leaning away from Obama, where President Bush is trying to lean in to that picture a little more. Like, hey, I'm not forgotten, am I? Look, I'm still here, we're buddies. And Obama is pushing away. A lot can be taught, a lot can be learned just from looking at the body language, and then we're not even looking at the face yet. We're focusing just straight down here on the bottom. Here's another great one. A bunch of the current president, Obama, but a bunch of ex-presidents. This is such a wonderful picture because it really indicates so much. Take a look at this. George Bush, again, he seems to really like Obama, you know? He's always, that guy's like always, he wants to be on his lap almost. He's leaning right into him. But if you notice, like what Obama's doing again, it's like, get this guy away from me. You know, he's just leaning, it's like, stop, you're so close. And Clinton's over here, he's just kind of like, yeah, I'm a good guy, it's okay. You know, and Carter, he just wants to go to lunch. He's not interested in anybody. You know, this guy, you can tell he's far away. Look at the gap in between these two. He's leaning to this way. Again, we're not looking at any of their facial expressions. We're focusing on the torso down, and we're focusing on the feet. And we can see that a lot of indication here. We're actually going to talk about Obama's hands in a second when we move on to hands, but this is a very, very strong power move. It's called steepling. It can really indicate someone's faculties too and where they're thinking. But just take a look at this. Oops, sorry about that. Take a look at the body language. It really does indicate a lot of the emotions. Here's another great example. President Clinton. What do you think he's more interested in? I can tell you right now, it's not the dude. So you can see there's a huge gap in between And here the woman, he's like, yeah, come a little closer. And he's just pulling her right in. You can see from the body language, there's absolutely no gap in between him and the woman where there's gap here. The hand placement, it's a very closed palm up against her side. A lot of indications in this picture that the body language shows where his thinking was, who he was more interested in being with at this picture time. Let's talk about hands. Hands are very important. Hands are a great indicator of mental processing. We do a lot of things with our hands when we're talking, don't we? We gesture. Sometimes if we can't think of a word, you ever find yourself trying to find the word and you're doing things that may indicate to someone the word, like, I just want a beer, right? A beer, yeah, a beer. That's what I want right now. You know, you can do a lot of things with your hands that indicate what you're thinking. Illustrators actually trying to make someone picture. Right? This is a really interesting thought. This week we got here, I brought my family. So I brought my little daughter and my wife with me, and she met a friend from another guy who was here giving a speech, and he had his daughter, both the same age. His daughter speaks only French, no English. My daughter speaks only English and no French. They must have played 3 days straight as if they were best friends. I said to her after day 2, how are you guys communicating? Oh, I understand her. I'm like, how do you understand her? You don't know French. Oh, we use sign language. They made up their own version of sign language. To be able to communicate with each other, these 2 8-year-olds. So illustrators are a very powerful indicator, and that's all on our hands, of what we're thinking. Touching is a big thing. Touching is a whole book written about the power of non-sexual touch. So when we talk about this, I'm not talking about anything sexual, but the power of touch when you're speaking with someone, the connection of just touching their forearm lightly. Now picture this, guys. For us guys up front here, right? You're sitting there at the bar, you're talking to a woman, and she reaches over and she touches your forearm when you say a joke. Right? She likes you. She's into you. But now if you go out and you reach out to touch her forearm, and she like kind of acts all repulsed, like, oh my God, what is he doing? Not into you, right? It's touching. Very, very powerful indicator of what someone is feeling. Steepling. I'm going to put the mic down for 1 second. Any of those type of hand gestures indicate a very high confidence level. If someone is steepling, they're very, very confident about what they're saying. Sometimes you'll see steepling really low. It's still a very high confidence level, but I'm just not arrogant. I'm confident about what I'm going to say, but I'm not arrogant. So my confidence is down here, but when I'm up here, and I have a great video, if we have time, I'll be able to show you. If we actually have time to show you steepling in action, it's wonderful. And a thumbs display. So a thumbs display is this right here. Believe it or not, cross-culturally, sorry, going in your way, when you have someone that their hand in their pocket, doesn't mean when you relax you're just like this, that means you're arrogant, that doesn't mean that. But people who tend to put their hands in their pocket, always leave their thumbs out, this is a primal thing. We are the creatures with opposable thumbs, and I'm going to show you that. I'm going to show you how important I am because of my opposable thumb. And look at how big it is. Yes, my thumb's bigger than yours. This is what it means. It's a very good indicator of how important a person feels about themselves when they have up with these thumbs. Donald Trump, this is a great one. A very confident man. A very confident man, one of the richest men on the planet, very confident in his business decisions. But when he's there, the steepling's very low. So he's saying, I'm confident about what I'm doing, but I'm trying my hardest to not display arrogance. Very, very powerful hand gestures. Here's a few more. This guy is a great indicator. There's actually an article written about him. He was a governor of one of the states in the United States. He actually had an article written about him, and the beginning sentence was, he's a bit of a jerk. Now, wouldn't you get that? Thank you. I'm getting the hand signal. Sorry. This article about this gentleman here was written, and the first sentence said, he's a bit of a jerk. He was a real arrogant guy, always sure of himself. Now, can you get that from this picture? Look at this. Chin is up, chest is out, the thumb is showing. All of it is, I am bigger and better than you. That's what all of this is saying without any words. This right here, focus on Clinton and I forget the name, can you believe that? A little total brain freeze. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. French guy telling me that the Americans, Palin, Senator Palin. Clinton had this great, he was one of the only presidents that ever did this. When he spoke to people, he always put his palm up. This is a very, very open gesture, right? If you're going to give something to somebody, how do you do it? Right? If I'm going to give you a euro that I have in my pocket, or I'm going to give you my business card, I give it out to you like this, right? This is a gesture of kindness. I'm giving you something. But when you go to take something, hands and palms are down, right? So you think about when you're speaking to people, if you're trying to give the impression that you're humble, you're honest, you want to give people information, you speak like this. And someone who can do that naturally, like President Clinton, he was able to do that in all of his speeches. He always spoke with palms up. It's a very humble position. It's a position that lets you know what? I'm sure of what I'm saying, but I'm here for you. I'm here for you. Now you imagine this. Hey, look, we need to do reform. We need to reform. We need to work together as unified people. Or, hey, listen to me. We're going to work together as unified people. Do you just hear the difference? Because body language affects our vocal tone. So when the palms are down, I'm telling you what we're going to do. I'm taking from you. I'm telling you this is how it's going to be. When my palms are up, I'm inviting you to come with me and to take part in something that we're going to do together. Very, very important hand gesture to look for, especially when it comes to politicians. Okay, hopefully we can still move on with neck. The neck is a very big one. Especially, guys, you're going to love this. This is a natural inclination. They did studies cross-culturally. Women just do this. I always have a problem saying this. The suprasternal notch, the little part of the neck that's right here. Naturally, women cover it when they feel endangered, when they feel a little pressured, when they feel troubled or scared. You'll see women do this. If you approach a girl and you start talking to her and she does this, back off. Okay, you're making her nervous. Okay, take a look at her feet and then next to her face and you'll see you're doing something wrong. Okay, so whatever you're doing, stop it. Now guys, we don't tend to do this. We tend to do this or this when we're in that same stress situation. We tend to take the back hand and rub the back of our neck really, really hard. And sometimes we don't even have a neck ache. We're just doing this for a long time. It's the same principle. When you're feeling scared, nervous, troubled, or concerned, then women do this, guys do this. The back of the neck is a great, great indicator of what someone's feeling. If you approach a person in a social engineering setting and you see them do this, a secretary, or you see the guy start rubbing the back of his neck, something you are doing is making them very uncomfortable. They're processing a thought that's probably going to end up in you failing whatever your goal is at that point. So back up, reapply. If a guy's wearing a suit and he starts fidgeting with his tie a lot, that's another great indicator that he's feeling uncomfortable. All of a sudden the tie becomes the focus, and you see him doing this all the time, and oh man, it's really tight, I want to loosen it, then I tighten it. That's a good indicator. Lip compression. You don't need much to see what these guys are feeling, do you? Lip compression is a really interesting psychological process. When we compress our lips, there's something I want to say, but I'm not really sure how to say it. Or I'm being asked a question that I really don't want to answer, and I'm blocking the words coming out from my mouth. I'm actually saying to you at this point, I need more time to think about how I'm going to process this answer and give it to you. And I'm not sure if I want to answer that question. Take another look at this. What is she saying, guys? Who wants to take a guess at what she's saying? Some guy approached her. Where's her feet and legs pointing? What's her face saying? Her lips, she might look like she's smiling, but she is not. That is not a real smile. Okay, her feet and legs are pointing away from the person that she's looking at. This whole body language right here is she saying, I want to be the hell away from whoever she's talking to right now. That's everything here is saying that. The only thing we don't see here is her covering her neck. That's about it. It's the only other indicator, or her screaming and running away. But she's trying to be pleasant. Here's another couple areas of lip compression, or, sorry, I'm getting the hand signal. It's twice now. Lip compression or lip puckering. Lip puckering is another one. Guys, if you see this from a girl, she's not saying kiss me. Okay, so don't go up and take that as an invitation. What she's saying is, I need to think about whatever you're saying to me. Lip puckering is again an indicator that I want to think about what you're asking before I answer. I want to be able to process my thoughts a little more before I speak on them. Maybe they're coming up with an answer. This is a great one. So this is Tanya Padermo, I think is the way you say her name. Her husband went missing, and he was a firefighter in Miami, Florida. And he went up to Maine, supposedly to help friends. This was the storyline. And after he went missing for a week, and they suspected he was dead, this was a press conference that she did. Every time the press asked her if she knew where her husband was, this was the exact facial expression that she made. Her lips compressed as tight as they can get, and they went over to the side. She looked down, and she constantly said, I just don't know. Now we'll get into the eye compression in a minute, what that means. This was a great indicator that there was something she didn't want to say. Now, did that mean guilt? No, we don't know if that meant guilt at that time. And he ended up he was dead. They found his body. He was running drugs up to Maine, and they ended up killing him, and he was dumped in the woods. So this ended up being some good indicators of the way that she felt, and probably knew more than what she was saying at the time. So now we go to the eyes. Eye blocking is a very, very big one that usually indicates things like guilt. Guilt, I don't want to see what you're forcing me to see, even if that's a mental scene, right? So it might not always be a physical scene. I might block my eyes because you're asking me to picture something mentally. You asked me a picture. O.J. Simpson, right? O.J. Simpson was asked lots of questions about the murdering of his ex-wife. And when he was asked those questions, a lot of times he did this. People sometimes take that as a stress indicator, which it is a stress indicator, but eye blocking is usually, I don't want to see you, I don't want to give off any indications of how I'm feeling, and I don't want to picture what you're asking me to picture. So if you see someone eye blocking, there's usually more behind the scenes than what you're being told. A lot of times eye blocking is very popular in grief, of course. Grief, someone lost a loved one, and like this gentleman here in the middle, he's very sad over the loss of a loved one. When they close their eyes really tight, I don't want to see what's in front of me. To be the casket, the thought, or the picture of the person they lost, whatever it is, eye blocking is a good indicator of sadness, of guilt, shame, those type of negative feelings. They may be frustrated. And also another way of eye blocking is very rapid eye fluttering. So you ask someone a question, and they start blinking at a very high rate of speed. This was great during, if you want to see it on YouTube, President Clinton's interview after he had sexual relations with Monica Lewinsky, and they were interviewing him about that, and he kept saying, I did not have sex with that woman, right? And he kept repeating that. You can watch his eye blink rate. His eye blink rate went from normal to about 192 blinks a minute. It was just a ridiculous eye blink rate. So take a look at that. So eye blocking is a big one. Okay, now we're going to get to my favorite part. This is micro expressions. Because we only have 45 minutes, I unfortunately can't go through each one, but I will make myself available if anybody is interested. Okay, I really mean this. If you guys are interested and a small group wants to get together and we can go through some of these, I'd be more than happy to. Micro expressions were originally discovered by Darwin. He realized that he actually wrote about it in the 1800s in one of his books. He wrote about how micro facial expressions were seen both in animals and in humans. Later on in life, now we're talking a couple decades later, a scientist named Dr. Paul Ekman started to do a study of micro facial expressions. What he determined is that these expressions took 1/25th of a second. So 1/8 of a second, basically someone's emotional state was expressed on their face. And it was uncontrollable. Here's the big part. You can't control it. So you walk up to someone, they're smiling, that's a macro expression. A micro expression is an emotional response that triggers muscular movements within your face. They're not controlled. You cannot, it's impossible. To prove that these were cross-culture, it didn't matter where you were from, Dr. Ekman spent 6 months in Papua New Guinea. And he took cameras and he went to a village that has never seen a television, never heard a radio, never read a newspaper. And he interacted with these people, taking video, film, and pictures, showing that they had the same exact facial expressions as sadness, anger, fear, happiness. than we did here, than you guys do here in France, than we did in America. Anywhere else that he visited, he proved that these facial expressions were provable and they were scientific. Now, you say 1/25th of a second. Boy, that's like almost impossible to see, isn't it? It is very, very fast. But with training, it's possible to be able to pick up on some of the aspects of micro-expressions. Right? If you take a look at, let's say, even this first picture here, I know the word's right next to it, so it's easy to determine that this is anger. But if you take a look at this, and you try to mimic this facial expression, I don't suggest we do it for long periods of time, but later on, if we have a group and we want to talk a little bit, we start mimicking these facial expressions, you see that it actually causes the emotion inside of you. If you start furrowing your brow, so this is pulling your eyebrows down and together, your lips get compressed. Your eyelids will automatically shut a little bit and you glare forward. You just feel everything inside of you tense. Like I see a guy doing like he's gonna come up here and beat the crap out of me. Right? Don't do that. You see how it just makes you intense. It causes those feelings of anger. If we can learn to read these, we can see what someone is actually feeling in an emotional state when we ask them a question. This has been used in the United States by law enforcement to find out where terrorists have hit bombs, to find out where certain groups have put kidnapped victims. This type of scientific information is being used to detect lies and deception, as well as to just interact normally with everyday people. So this led to another piece of research, and this is the part that really fascinated me. This is what caused me to get excited from a social engineering standpoint. Now that up to now, we haven't really talked about social engineering a heck of a lot. Let me just take a look at the time. Okay, good, we're great. So there's this group out of Brown College in the United States, and they got together and they were doing research on the way that humans interact with each other when emotions are there. You ever notice if one person starts yawning, how it spreads through the room? Things like that. Like how can it be that if you walk into a small room and there's a group of people over here laughing, that maybe you find yourself you start to laugh? Or when you see something really sad on a screen, a TV screen or movie screen, it starts to affect your emotions. Even without the words, just hearing it. Right? I can't understand French at all. But I'm sitting here listening to all the speeches, and when you guys start laughing at a joke that was said, I had no clue what was being said, but I found myself laughing along. Why? I don't know. It just was funny, right? Whatever that was said was funny. And maybe it wasn't funny, but I thought it was funny because you guys thought it was funny. So these scientists did research. They found something called mirror neurons. That these were neurons that were in these two different parts of the brain. Right here in the parental lobe, and right here in the frontal lobe. And there was little sections of neurons that were grouped together, that the way they reacted is that when they saw human emotion, so not it had to be human, right? So it's not from an animal or anything else. When they saw human emotion, they triggered the same muscular and emotional response than what was being seen. Now, if I said that too fast, please tell me. This is a really, really important point when it comes to social engineering in person. And so I'm going to repeat that. These neurons trigger the same exact emotional response in you than what's being seen, either in person or on the screen. That's what mirror neurons do. And that's like a mirror. They create a mirror of an emotional state of what's being seen in your brain. So that to prove this, what they did, the definition of a mirror neuron here. What they did to prove it is they got together, they created what's called an EKG helmet. That's this funky looking device right here. These EKG helmets had over 60 little devices that just sat on the head and read muscular response. So if a muscle triggered electronically, then it read it. And they took volunteers and they showed them a video. And the video had absolutely no human faces in it. But it was all happy scenes. Things like beaches, puppies playing, the sun shining. It was just fun stuff. Things that would make normal people happy. And they would watch this video. It was about 25 minutes long. And they would register that after the video, most people felt pretty happy. When they were interviewed, also according to the EKG helmet, that these people felt very, very happy. Well, what they did then is they took the same exact video, and every minute they put in a 1/25th of a second frame of a micro expression of a person that was flashing either sadness, fear, or anger. So the opposite of happiness. Sadness, fear, or anger. They put this 1/25th second frame, just a really quick, like subliminal frame, and then what they did is they replayed the movie, so the person then watched the movie again. After interviewing the person, they found that routinely these people were either sad, afraid, or angry, and they could not describe why. They couldn't explain why after watching the scene of a beautiful, happy beaches, puppies playing, the sun shining, that they would feel angry. What was it that made me feel angry? I watched this before, I watched it yesterday, and I was happy, now I feel angry. What's wrong with me? And afterwards, what they revealed with the EKG helmet is that these muscles that would cause anger, okay, the sadness muscles, right, or the fear muscles, these were being triggered each time that micro expression flashed on the screen. They were finding that people were actually mirroring the emotional state of what was seen even in 1/25th of a second as opposed to what was being seen for the longer period of time. Because as humans, we are naturally drawn, psychologically drawn to other human faces. Right? This is why, and this is another study we won't get into, but this is why sometimes we feel so akin to apes and monkeys. They have similar faces. They have similar faces. But we're drawn to human faces. If we're in a crowd and there's a lot of things, not people, and there's a person, our eyes will be drawn to that person. Our eyes will see the face. Well, they did this study over and over hundreds of times. They wrote this wonderful white paper. And what they said here, I'm just going to read this quote. I'm going to read from right here. So our results showed that an unconsciously perceived signal of threat, such as a brief facial expression of fear, can still bubble up and unwittingly influence social judgments and how we act. And that is a pretty profound statement. All the things around them were happy, and they would flash fear, and it would actually make the person doubt their own judgment. I know I should be happy. There's a beach here. There's two puppies playing. But why am I afraid? And it actually caused negative emotions in this person. Very, very fascinating study. Now, why is this fascinating? From a social engineering perspective, okay, now I'm going to take this to the security level for a moment. When we think about influencing another person, the way we can work that is if we are in control of our emotions. And now let's just make believe you're being hired for a social engineering pen test. Your job is to infiltrate the company to get through the front door. What emotion is going to be the most valuable emotion for the secretary or the gatekeeper to feel if you're trying to get her to let you through the door? It's going to be empathy, right? Empathy is what's going to work. Empathy is linked to sadness. So if you can flash sadness, you can make her feel a little bit more mellow, not so aggressive, then you can control your emotional state. She will start to mirror that. Have you ever been in an altercation with someone who's very, very angry? This happened once to me. I cut somebody off by mistake. I wasn't paying attention. The guy got really mad. He has these like monster trucks, you know, all I can see is the tires behind my wheels. And in my rearview mirror, he's honking, he's flashing his lights. He wants to rip my head off. And I got my kids in the car, you know, I'm not interested in getting into a fight. I'm definitely not getting beat up by this redneck. So, you know, this guy's swerving all over the road. He cuts me off and pulls over. I get out of the car and I said, "You're probably really, really ticked off that I cut you off." He's like, "Of course I am. F you. You almost wrecked my car." I am really, really sorry. I am such a jerk. I don't even know what you have kids in the car? Because I would have killed my kids if I hit that truck. That thing's huge. That must have cost you a mint. All of a sudden, this whole personality changes. I took all the blame. I lowered my voice. I lowered my chin. My hand was up. I'm apologizing. I could have easily turned into a massive altercation, but by simply taking the blame, lowering my voice, showing sadness on my face, his anger was not possible to continue unless he was so ultra-focused. But you can control people that way. So this study became a fascination of mine. Now, I got the 10-minute signal, so I can't go on anymore about it. But what I will tell you, because I do want to see if there's any questions in the audience, but I do want to tell you a little bit about this type of a study that's really, really important. This is the big, giant, fat caution, okay, is that once we learn to read people's body language and nonverbal communications, we may know what someone is feeling, but we don't know why. And this is a really, really important caution. It does not So if I can look out into the audience and I can pick that someone is sad, someone is happy, someone is angry, I don't know why. Maybe you just read a text message and someone just said something really rude to you, and that's why you're angry. It's not at me, but I'm reading anger, right? And maybe I'm reading happiness, and it's not because you like my speech, but you're thinking about what you're going to eat for dinner. You know, I don't know, whatever it is. It doesn't tell me why you're feeling what you're feeling. All I can do is read what you're feeling. This is a huge caution, but the way that we get past that, is everyone says, how do you do that? The way we get past that is by elicitation. You have to interrogate and elicit information from people, and that tells you what they're feeling and why they're feeling it. So if you think someone is feeling anger or sadness, you can ask questions. You can lead your conversation in that way, and what that does is draw them out, and then they begin to tell you their emotions, and then you confirm if that's the right direction to go. Okay, so I just want to know if there's any questions on this topic before we conclude. Hey, you know, I know questions are hard. I did a speech the other day in a small group, and it seems like you guys have a lot of questions. I'm going to bribe you. If you ask a question, I have 2 books, so the first 2 people to ask a question, I'll give you a book. Oh, look at this, now there's 500 hands. Okay, who wants to do it? First person to ask a question, and then the second person, and then the rest of you will get stickers if you ask questions. How about that? I'm bribing you.
What's your name? Oh, I was the first question.
You can't steal the book, you're the presenter.
Hi, that's a nice presentation. My question is, what about blind people who cannot see? People with
Yes, that's an excellent question. So in case you didn't hear it, the question was, what about blind people? Now, I'm going to take that from 2 different angles, okay? 2 different angles to answer your question. The first is Dr. Matsumoto, who was Dr. Ekman's understudy for about 10 years. He just did a study on blind people and if they're able to express facial expressions. Amazingly enough, even someone blind from birth expresses the very same facial expressions that we express, even though they were never able to see it. That tells us that genetically we're coded that this is anger, this is anger, this is sadness. These facial expressions were common even in blind people who could never see. Now, from the other standpoint, because I don't know which way you were asking, for a blind person being able to read nonverbals, yeah, I don't know. I mean, not unless they walk up and start feeling people, you know, what are you feeling? So that could be really hard. But from the first part, it proved scientifically that blind people still do the same expressions. Okay, I got one more book. That was a worthy question too. That was a good one.
The other question was here.
I'm gonna let you choose, so that way they don't beat me up afterwards, okay?
On parle beaucoup de la théorie de Ekman, entre autres dans la série des théories, je crois. Est-ce qu'il y a des cross studies? Est-ce qu'il y a des références si vous vérifiez tout ce que j'ai dit?
We speak a lot about the Ekman theory, and if there are any references, any studies that have been done, realized to prove what has been said.
Yes, actually there's lots. I would be more than happy to share with you all of the studies. If you need some quick references, Dr. Ekman wrote a series of books, I think there's 6 or 7, that are based off of his scientific work that you can find on Amazon or any bookstore. I'm not sure if they're translated to French. But I can give him a business card, and if he would like to email me, I'd be more than happy to share all the scientific references with you. Yes. I got some stickers if you got more questions.
It's for stickers now.
Probably works.
So, who has a question? Okay, I will do the order of this.
Sir, on a practical basis, where do you put the cursor when to start using this or influencing people? When to stop? Because this is a very powerful tool, and I'm wondering if in your work or in the field of work, contact people that like to work out this.
Yeah, so his question, if you couldn't hear it, was where's the ethical line in between when to turn it off and when to turn it on and when to shut it off? I'm the wrong guy to ask because I never she'll constantly try to get away with things. And I'll always use it. And she'll see. She actually took Dr. Ekman's class with me on reading micro-expressions. So she sees me reading her face. She's like, so do this, because she's talking to me, because she knows. But I feel that it helps us communicate better. I feel that way now. I'm not sure if that's 100% true. That's what I feel. It helps me communicate better with other people. If I'm saying things and you're looking at me and you're getting angry, I'm saying something wrong. I need to slow down or say something different, change what I'm saying. That can only make things better. Now, from a malicious standpoint, it tends to mean what's your intent. So intent is to me, is the biggest part of that. When to shut it off is when your intent changes from doing the good to the bad. That would be my answer. Make sure you get some sticker.
Bonjour. Je voulais savoir dans le cas, par exemple, des maladies mentales comme les psychopathes qui sont censés pouvoir cacher leurs émotions, est-ce qu'ils peuvent aussi cacher leurs expressions faciales ou pas? Leurs vivres expressions?
You know, you have sociopath people who are just have absolutely no feelings, social feelings. So these kind of people can hide their facial expressions. How do you deal with them?
Yes, yeah, make sure he gets a sticker. That's a good question. This question is on sociopaths. Okay, so this is a difficult situation. Sociopaths are unable to feel guilt. They don't feel guilt, which means they won't feel shame, and generally they don't feel sadness at the suffering of the people that they're causing the suffering to. So because of that, there's a lot of triggers that you're not going to be able to pick up on. Deceit is not inherent within them because they don't feel that what they're doing is wrong, right? They don't feel guilty about it. They actually enjoy it. Maybe a sociopath goes out and hurts animals or hurts people just to know what it feels like. So if you start eliciting information from a sociopath, you're not going to get the normal triggers. So how to deal with it? It's very, very, very difficult. It really is. There was a book by the guy who caught Ted Bundy. They interviewed him, and they interviewed the FBI interviewed Osama bin Laden. You look at some of these case studies, and you see the way that they had to work in order to interview, interrogate, and get information from these people. And it was a different ballgame. It was all based on building rapport and not based on any type of nonverbals because they're just not trustworthy in a sociopath. Good question, though. Thank you.
Hi. Can you please explain to us a situation when you use these tools in your work?
This type of stuff in my work? Yes, all the time. So mainly the nonverbals will of course be used mostly when I'm doing penetration testing. So I'll give you a great example. I'm going to pretext as a delivery guy or as the IT support person. When I do that, it's not just an outfit, right? Because if I come in and you think about the average support person, they're in America at least, they're a lower paid, usually younger guy, not too happy with their job because they're not making a lot of money. So if I come in with a stance like this, my body language is not matching who that person should be. So I need to come in a little bit different. I need to come in a little bit like this. Hey, I'm a support guy, I'm really good service. You know, I need to come in with a whole different personality than what may be mine naturally. So I have to use this all the time when it comes to physical penetration. And so physical is good, but it also can be used in written penetration tests, like fishing. I do a lot of fishing for my clients, and I know that sounds funny, but when I fish, I'll use nonverbal written language, of course, in order to influence people, knowing that if I'm writing to the CEO, that they're going to maybe be a D-type personality, very demanding, very straightforward. So if I come off all fluffy and happy, they're turned off. So I have to come very straightforward, and that really makes it a lot easier for the person then to respond to me. So I use these type of principles in almost everything I do for work. You're welcome.
Okay, we have one last question.
One last question?
Yeah, I think one last, and if you need to talk to the speaker, you can do it just after.
Yeah, I'll make myself available back here soon.
Yeah, okay.
Bonjour, alors moi c'est un peu dans le même registre que le psychopathe tout à l'heure. Comment être sûr qu'on est en face de quelqu'un qui soit entraîné à cacher ses micro-expressions?
you be sure regarding the topic of sociopath or any people trying to hide his feelings? How do you know that you are speaking with someone who is hiding his feelings?
Yes, that's an excellent question. Without psychological analysis, it's not going to be possible to know if someone's a sociopath or not, right? So that would be very difficult. I can tell you that up front. But there's a lot of things that need to be controlled to give a whole image. And a normal person who's being deceitful will not be able to control all of them, right? If I'm being deceitful to you, if my brain is saying, I want you to think I like you, I may be able to control from here on. I may be able to portray happiness. I may even get the right smile down, get my eyes involved. I look super happy when you come, but my feet are facing this way. It's going to be very hard for an average person to really think about the whole package and what to control. So really this type of study, what it needs is when you're dealing with people is to look at the whole package. See if everything fits. That's why that caution is there is really important, because the caution indicates that just because you can read an emotion here doesn't mean you know what someone's feeling or why they're feeling it. You only know what the emotion is. So take the whole package, ask a few questions, and then you can determine what you're dealing with. Now in a social engineering endeavor, I can say this, if I use one minute? Okay. In a social engineering endeavor, the chances of me ever having to deal with a sociopath, I hope, is very, very small. So my area of expertise in that is only by reading what the doctors have done, and I've never really had a chance to interview or elicit information from the sociopath. My experience is just in that. Good question, there. Thank you. Hey, he left. We can do one more question. Maybe that's true. Okay, he's thinking about something. Go ahead. Do I use my technique with girls? My wife will kill me. So if that's fine, my wife will kill me. But I can tell you this, and Hisham can vouch for me, my wife is a beautiful